made in Great Britain. Well, that's the amazing tile and glass cutter. That's something you don't see every day, made in Great Britain. We actually invented the tool in 1971 in England, still made in the UK to this day. You may have seen something very similar in the hardware stores. We don't actually sell our tool in the stores, so what you see in the stores is actually a copy of our tool. And they don't work very good. Easy peasy. Okay, I'm going to show you just how easy the tool is to use and how we get away with doing cuts like that. Okay, some tips and tricks on using the amazing tile and glass cutter. Okay, first of all, best way to hold the tool. Never hold it back here when you're scoring it. The reason is you can't score hard enough, you can't get a lot of control over the tool. So, best way to hold it, pick it up like so, finger and thumb on the rivet, wrap your hand around it. If you're left-handed, the other side. And the reason I say this is so that you can hold it close to the wheel, so that you can push down and get a good score. Weakens the tool, dead centre on the line. Always want to be right on top of the line, right in the centre of the jaws there. And what this does really is make sure that this bar here is pushing up directly below the line. So, these two push down either side, that one pushes up in the middle, it physically bends the tile. Best way to hold the tool when you squeeze, don't hold it too close, you don't have a lot of control here. So you want to be holding it as far back as possible on the handles. The handles are made of spring steel and this utilises that spring steel. So squeeze nice and easy, and that's all there is to it. If you need to do a shape, again, make sure you get a good firm score, always hold it close to the wheel. Now when you start in the score line, you start right on top of the tile, okay? Right on top, not over the edge. If you go over the edge, you're going to jump the first bit, you're not going to get a good score. So, right on top. And go all the way off the edge of the tile. If you've got a piece of wood underneath, that's better. It's not going to hurt the wheel, it's very tough. Again, dead centre, all the way into the back of the jaws here. Right here, all the way in. You go halfway in like this, you're going to chip the edge of the tile when you squeeze it. So make sure you go all the way in as far as you can. Again, hold it as far back as you can. Support the tile at the other end so you don't drop it, and that way you're not going to roll through and chip the edge of the tile also. So, if you're doing a wall tile, one hand's enough to score it. When you squeeze, again, just support it at the other end, nice and easy. Don't over squeeze, just enough to break the tile and no more. And that's how you do wall tile. When you're doing floor tiles, you want to push down a lot harder. So, instead of using one hand, I'm using two hands. Push down, nice firm score. Again, start right on the top, not over the edge. You hear that? I'm pushing down with a bit of pressure there to make sure I get a firm score. All we're doing is utilising physics. As long as you can create a weakness in the surface is harder than the back, so it'll break the tile. If the surface is the same as the back, like granite, then you're going to have to cut through it with a diamond. Dead centre, same again, right on the line. These two push down, pushes up, bends the tile. Again, and that's all there is to it. If you're doing a shape in a tile, like a radius cut, this time instead of going straight onto the line, I'm angling towards the cut. And again, all I'm really doing is making sure this bar is directly below the line. So I'm making sure this point here is on the centre. Now I slow it down a little bit for doing these shapes. I just want it to crack slowly as it travels around. So nice and easy. And that's how we get nice clean cuts. Better than I can get with my wet saw. The harder the tile, the harder I push down. So when I'm doing those real thick quarry tiles, I am pushing down a lot harder. So I use two hands, and this time I'm physically leaning over it with my body, and I'm getting some upper body weight on there. Can you zoom out in that? So I'm physically leaning over the tile and getting some upper body weight on there. Dead centre. If it's too thick for me to get my hands around it, or I can't physically squeeze it, I'll sit it on the table, take a hammer or another tile, and hit it right here. This is spring steel, it's very tough, it's not going to hurt the tool. Just like so. And that's all it is. there is to doing hard tiles. Don't worry about hurting the tool. If you actually ran over it with a truck, you can bend it back into shape, it won't break. It'll bend, but it's spring steel, so it won't snap. If you do manage to break it, you just send it back to the office, they'll send you a new one. Has an unconditional lifetime guarantee. You break it or drive over it, we replace it. And then, same as I'm doing with the quarry tile on the straight line, I do the same for the shapes. Push down hard. This usually takes a hammer and chisel, but because we're pushing down hard, we're creating a weakness in the surface. It takes a bit more to squeeze these big sections, but as I said, you can use a hammer if you need to. So that's all there is to doing a hard tile, quarry tile. Now, when you're doing glass, a couple of things to always remember. Number one, oil the wheel every time. Very important for glass. Do it every time for glass, every 3 or 4 cuts for tile, but every time for glass. Cools down the glass. Make sure the glass is nice and clean, no bits of grit on the surface. Always hold it close to the wheel again, start right on the top, push down. If you don't hear this noise, you're not pushing down hard enough and it's not going to break the glass. Dead center on the line again. Now on the glass I only go about halfway in. You'll notice that here. I'm not totally in on the glass. Now the reason I do this is it adds a little bit more bend, if you would like, to the glass. So I don't need to squeeze quite as hard. So I can slow it down. So I squeeze very, very gently. And it bends the glass and forces it all the way down that line. Now the reason I can get it to go nice and slow like that is I'm actually using my thumb as a cushion. So what I'm actually doing here is when I'm squeezing, I've got my thumb here, squeezing against my thumb. I'll show you that on the glass while I do it. I'll make sure I get a nice firm score. I'm halfway in on the glass again. Dead center. Okay, as I squeeze, I'm just slowly squeezing against my thumb. And that's how I can get the glass to go real slow. And that gives me a much more controlled squeeze. That's how we can do the 8-foot pieces of glass, just squeeze very slow. It just takes 1 or 2 goes just to get the hang of that. It's not really very difficult. Now, if you're doing real big tiles, this one's like a 22-inch floor tile, 22 inch. It's really big. When I squeeze it, I'm just giving it a little helping hand on the top. So, right dead center again. I'm going to put my thumb there. I'm supporting it, and I'm just giving it a little push along as well. Don't really need to do it on the 22-inch ones, but on the bigger ones, that just helps me get that cleaner cut. I think that's all my secrets. So when you're doing the tile, first thing you do when you pick the tool up, a drop of oil on the wheel. The very first thing on the instruction sheet, first thing you do. Does 2 things. Lubricates the wheel, and it also cools down the glass when you're scoring the glass. Nice firm score, very gentle squeeze. Increase the pressure slowly whenever you're squeezing the tiles. Nice and easy. And that way you're going to get a much cleaner break. Squeeze too hard, too fast, and you'll end up chipping the tiles at the edge there. So, nice and easy. So, see how that chip there? That's because I went too fast. So you don't want to over squeeze. Just want the tile to break and no more. So I'm going nice and slow. And that way I get a much bigger break. And that's the trade secrets to using the tool. It's a very simple tool really. We just make the wheel so hard we can do the very hard tile. So that's the amazing tile and glass cut.